I just want to offer a short framing about the
Mm.
interview. Like I shared in my initial invitation, this is for
Mhm.
the Ecoversities Alliance. They're celebrating 10 years of the alliance, and they're writing on different topics. And I'm writing about the Forestversities,
Mm.
which is it is about a forest, but it's also about how to come back to the more than the human and be in right relationship with Earth and her beings. So my
Mhm.
intention is to write about your work as a means of unlearning what modernity taught us,
Mm.
and to write about how to reshape our relationship with the more than the human. But also, I have questions related to your work at Starter Culture
Mhm.
uh, to better get a better understanding on how to collectively support this transition to a soul-centric and
Right.
earth-centric paradigm.
Yeah.
Uh, yes. So then I'd like to begin with my first question, which is about it is about you and how did this journey of coming back to the more than a human world begin for you? How did
Mm.
you choose this path you're on right now?
Mm. Thank you.
Mm.
Um, I think it began when I was 9. Um, I used to play in my parents' garden. I grew up in a town, and I would play in my parents' garden. Um, but I was still very human in that. I mean, I was a child, so the children were always kind of in these beautiful liminal uh,
Yeah.
spaces of, human creature, imaginal being, nature being, Uh, but I think the first time I really became conscious of it is when I was 9. My family would go up to Maine. As I said, I grew up in the United States on the East
Yeah.
Coast. And, my family would go up to Maine in the summers to an island, and little tiny island. And I remember this moment where I was playing out in the woods. I find myself caught in a particular uh, tiny little glade, like most of the birch trees opened, and the ground was bedded with wintergreen.
Mm.
Sun shone in a particular way, and there was a dead log there, and I can still see it, as if I were there, 47 now. Um,
Mm.
and it was like some energy, something sacred called me into that clearing. Uh, and in a way, changed me, or a kind of magic happened in which I stepped through a veil into the truth of the real world of belonging to the um and when we would go back summer, I never found that place again. It
Wow.
searched and searched, and in a way that's still the search, and that's still the guiding kind of call for me, is that when those moments of this holy, uh,
Mm.
holy wild call me, through the veil into the real
Mm.
world, the more real world behind the world. So in a way, it's then, and and then I would say, when I was, I don't know, something like 19 or 20, I started getting into mystical, practices, and began to kind of fall in love with the night sky, or not. I couldn't really see the night sky, the cosmos. I was living in New York City, so there wasn't really much sky to see, but the cosmos, something about kind of this relationship between Earth and the holy and the cosmos and soul, I think awoke in me. And it's been a deepening and ever since. Mm.
Mm.
In which point now I'm, of course, crafting and creating experiences for other people to slip through that veil and discover
Yes.
their aliveness and their at home in the wild. Yeah, their belonging.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for sharing that story from at such a young age. It was really vivid. I was there with you for a moment. And what you mentioned about helping people slip through the veil. So my second question, it is about that. It is about your work as a soul guide. You, I read on your website, you said it is more important than ever to remember ourselves as ones who embody the dreaming of the earth. And this is something it deeply resonates with me. So my question is, from your experience as a soul guide, what helps people remember? Yeah, what did you notice from this work? What works? What enables it?
Yeah, it's such an important question. What allows change, or what supports transformation or remembering?
The remembering, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that the first part of that answer is coming off of the story I just shared and said, how to craft a shift of consciousness, how to create a space that is safe enough to be risky for the ego, and that is ritually held, that we name the threshold, or we name what's possible. And then there's practices that I use and have learned and created and been, through my musing, my creative fire, to shift that consciousness, right? It might be drumming, it might be movement, it might be singing, it might be hours wandering out in the wild. It might be particular invitations I give according to dreams people have had, night dreams, or visions, or encounters with wild animals. So there's many, many, many tools and techniques. Ultimately, it's this invitation to expand from human-centered consciousness to earth-centered consciousness, to understand ourselves in a larger web of life context. And then it's and then mystery, or the wild, kind of, and the soul of the person. That relationship is actually the thing that helps people to remember. And my job, once I've opened up the portal, once they've gone through, is to support them to go as deep as possible and to stay as close as possible to the dreaming of earth, which is those wild encounters, which is our night dreams, which is ways of perceiving and knowing the world that are not based on the strategic mind. And that includes, our beloved protectors who want to keep us safe, and keep the old life happening, and also the conditioning of modernity. It's strong, the conditioning of modernity, and every time we return from the wild, we are confronted with that dissonance and the temptation or the danger of choosing to belong the way we used to, rather than into the larger life that we're living into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Naming this dissonance, I feel it's crucial. And this is where I wanted to lead with the next question, because while writing this article, the first part is about naming the wound, the personal wound that I feel related to this topic, our broken relationship to Earth and her beings. And while going into this process, I felt that the wound is this tension between forgetting and remembering. Is the fact that I'm living in both worlds. I do remember, I get glimpses of it, like you shared from experience that take me across the veil, and then I come back and I slip into the old routines, what's familiar, the collective inertia. So my question is, how to, I don't know what's the right word, but how to be with this tension, how to respond to it, how to tend it. It's like right now as we're living in these two worlds.
Yeah, way.
Yeah.
I want to invite, it's a beautiful question, thank you. And I want to invite a larger context, which is
Mm.
there's something about the forgetting and the remembering that is human.
Right.
We sleep and we wake and we forget and we remember. And, you know, we could say all spiritual practices are tools of remembering, because forgetting is sort of this part of the human experience. It's in many indigenous traditions, they speak to that. You know, the calendars of stone and star and ritual are kind of this basket of remembering, so that, because we forget, because we get distracted, right? So there's something about that that is not wrong, you know. There's something about the wounding that is the perfect shape, the perfect crack to walk through, to feel the world through. We don't want, you know, it's not possible to just be in bliss and union all the time, right? Where we have these earthy, delicious bodies, you know. We're both persons and collective, you know, we're particle and wave. So this tension of remembering your particle and remembering your wave is maybe you know, part of this dance. And one other thing for context and framing is tension itself is actually, as a soul guide, it's what I'm looking for. It does the work on the ego.
Yes.
And the ego is, I want to also say here, is not bad. Ego is totally necessary for functioning in the world, crossing the street, buying groceries, you know, making things, you know, making a life. But we want the ego to be in service to soul and in service to earth.
Yes.
The problem is when ego is in service to itself or to other, you know, who am I in service to? I think it's an important question. And so, you know, partly it's the shifting consciousness, these practices of remembering, and it's also through starter culture, we talk about modernity, our current civilization, as both the product of trauma and the embodiment or the traumatizing force. And earth-centric consciousness, remembering ourselves as part of Earth community and in our soul essence, is the kind of deep resource, right? So the more we say yes to that, the more resourced we are. And the more resourced we are in mythos, in soul, in wild earth community, the less the trauma vortex of modernity, you know, can suck us in. We learn how to be, just as when we do our personal healing, you know, we're less pulled into those old ways of being that are harmful to ourselves, or, you know, suffering. The same thing. We're less participate in practices that are harmful to earth and cause suffering to all beings. So there's one more thing I wanted to say before I give it back to you. This tension, there's something about can we make, so the tension is the thing we want to sit in. We want to let that tension be the alchemical cauldron that does its work on us. We want that heartbreak. We want that desire. We want that longing to be awake in us, right? So that we don't fall asleep. I mean, that's what brings us always back to remembering, right? Is that tension. And that's what does its work on us to make us ones who are not satisfied with tragedy. Right? If we were to lose that tension, we would fall asleep again. So it's, in a way, it's this beautiful gift, this blessing inside a curse, you know. And so it's not about solving that tension or getting rid of it. It's about saying yes to it and being in a relationship with it in a particular way, right? If we're only suffering, we can't do our work. If we're only in agony, we can't say yes to the wild call of earth and of soul. So we need the resource, we need the magic, we need mystery, we need those moments and glimpses that you were talking about, right? because they are the thread that we're following, actually. Right.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. You put it really beautifully. And yes, it's like you said, it's not about resolving the tension, but it's more about learning how to sit with it. And it seems like part of what modernity is doing to us, so to say, is that it keeps us away from living this tension.
Be comfortable. Everything
Yeah.
should be comfortable all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Our window of tolerance for discomfort, has gotten so tiny in modernity. Our capacity to actually feel our pain, our grief, be uncomfortable, not have hot running water and huge televisions and distraction all the time. It's like,
Yeah. 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 And we need, like you said, the wild things, the wild stories, the land to resource us to actually be able to sit with the tension.
mhm,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And now I'm curious, shifting a bit to your work with starter culture.
Mhm.
Um, and from what I read, the essence of the work is about bringing together inner-led change with systemic change. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm wondering how are you helping people with this?
Yeah.
What is specific to your approach, the way you and your team are doing this?
Yeah. Great. Thanks. Again, some framing. There was before I was a part of starter culture, the founder Claire Milne and the other two founders had about 250 cups of tea, they called them, which you can also read about on the website. But listening in for, what's going on in change-making communities around the inner, and people were recognizing, burnout and conflict, and repeating basically the wounding in the shadow of modernity within their own groups and organizations.
Yeah.
And so out of that was born starter culture, to tend exactly this crossroads that you named, the inner change with systemic transformation. And it's held within, we have 4 vital ingredients. One of them is becoming earth-centric, we're just talking about, right? So shifting from human-centric to earth-centric in our consciousness, understanding ourselves as belonging to earth community first, before any human communities. Decolonizing at depth. So not only the kind of very real daily decolonization, but also the inner decolonization of colonizer consciousness and of the legacy of both colonizer and colonized, which includes our own shadow work, which includes our own core wound work, which includes our capacity to be with discomfort and collaborate across difference and not see difference of opinion as or difference of anything as grounds for war, right? Then we have trauma, being trauma attuned, and we use that word attuned because it's more than being trauma informed. It's about understanding the way the energetic signature, and therefore the engagement with the world, because of civilization trauma and personal trauma and generational trauma, all they're all interwoven together, obviously, these 4 ingredients. But understanding it in our own beings, and then also tracking it in the collective and in others, so that we can tread relationally in that field, right? Because we're about building relational culture. And including our own experience, not disappearing ourselves, betraying ourselves. And the last one is emergent strategizing. And so what's at the emergent edge? And this is really important because we don't know what Earth is up to. We don't know what these times are actually about. My current hunch, by the way, is collective species-wide initiation, and that this crisis is the crisis of that will bring us into the descent of soul initiation as a species. But we don't actually know. We don't know what dreaming with Earth and co-creating a future world that is generative and relational will look like. We have no idea, you know. We are Earth, and we are always interwoven and interdreaming. So, you know, what is that when the other three vital ingredients are nourished in us, then this capacity to be at that emergent place where we're co-creating, co-dreaming with Earth is possible. And then we can get curious about, well, what do I specifically offer right now to my community, to my people, to Earth, for this transformation that I am in service to? What can my group or organization, you know, from that aliveness, from that Earth-centric, uncolonized, trauma-attuned place, listen in for at the emergent edge of how Earth is dreaming through us, right? Personally and collectively. So at Startup Culture, we're not that interested in direct action. I mean, we're it's essential, and we're really glad people are doing it. But it's not. But it's like we want to be, you know, more in the roots of things, and that the consciousness shift, because the consciousness that created the problem, as we know, cannot be the one that solves the problem. And we're even saying, what if, like bioakomalafe, what if calling it a problem is part of the problem? Like, what if there's a very different way of being in relationship with what's happening, right? Including grieving loss and being, you know, torn apart by the reality of what's afoot, what's happening. So our kind of, we want to be supporting those who are doing direct action, activists, organizations, and we have a very wide, you know, definition. There's not like, you can be self-named, you know, if you believe you're a change maker, believe you know, there's no like requirement, but we want to support change makers from this place of how to build relational culture through these vital ingredients.
I didn't know about your work when Manish invited me to interview, and now just hearing you speak about it, and also reading the report on starter culture, and I'm struck by how familiar your mission is with what I'm trying to do here in Romania, especially what you named, bringing the collective change and also conflict transformation, moving beyond polarization and connecting it to this coming back to the earth and the land and the beings and the more than the human. I feel it's something quite missing around, like I feel you name it really well, helping this shifting consciousness before acting. We need to see where we're at, sit with what's happening more. Yes, and I read a bit about the conversation you had with the change makers around the world, and it was mentioned this thing about what stops people from moving forward with their work as related to funding. So I was curious here, what are your insights and your perspective on how to move the resources that are right now invested in this current paradigm that is self-destructive, like the money are there, the ownership is there. So how to move them to support these new budding initiatives, like what you're doing and what other people are doing, which is new, doesn't quite make sense to the status quo, definitely not. So how to begin to ground it in the material with having the resources to support it.
That's the question, isn't it? That's the question, you know, that we also struggle with, you know, of course. You know, we don't have any answers. It's our first intention is to make that visible, that question visible, right? Because if that's not visible and known and in the shared consciousness, there's not you know, it's one of those cracking open kind of like, let's bring the light in here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people doing, you know, a lot of philanthropists are doing really beautiful work and looking for these kinds of projects, you know. So I just keep coming back to, we just keep coming back to relationship, you know, it's about relationship. So how do we, what are the ways that each of us, each organization, each group, each person is called to be in relationship with the world? And, you know, so we're not talking marketing strategy or, you know, it's like, how am I called to be in relationship? How am I called to love the world? And how does the world respond to my loving? Which shifts our entire way of being in a relationship, right? And so this is, I think that it's not about, if we're just about like, where can I get money? You know, of course there's grant writing and there's different things that we can do, you know, but actually the transformational edge, the emergent, you know, transformation that's possible is through relationship between funder and person, or funder and organization. It's slower, you know, it's slower, it's riskier, it's, it may not be as successful, quote unquote. But in our experience, the more we tend to what is ours to tend to, and the more we stay with our way of being who we are in the world and offering what we have in the world to offer, the more the world responds. Right? So we have this fellowship coming up. It's really exciting for an 18-month fellowship that's going to start next spring for change makers, moving through our 4 vital ingredients as a journey. And supporting people right through that consciousness change, basically. And we have a funder that found out about us from another funder who's been in relationship with Claire. She does most of the as one of the founders, you know, she does most of the conversation, you know, relationship building. And now the organization, you know, the philanthropical organization of this person is funding our fellowship, right? Because we sat down like this and had a conversation about what we're up to and who we are, and we're in, you know, and we have the kind of conversations with funders that are, you know, embodiments of our work at Starter Culture, right? We're creating spaces of shifting consciousness and embodying these 4 vital ingredients to the best of our capacity, and bringing in, you know, the other, we have design, you know, there's design principles and, you know, all these different things that we're working with. And so we bring those right into our conversations, where, you know, as best we can, walking our talk. And so the kinds of conversations that we invite people into are not status quo conversations. You know? They're not about like, whatever, all the jargon, you know, they're about, you know, asking them what their longings are, and what their vision is, and who they are, and what, you know, what they want to bring with their, you know, with the kind of world they want to be making with their money, right? So already we have a different kind of a conversation, because that's the way we want to be in relationship with the world.
Yes.
Or are in relationship with the world.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. And just by listening to you, with the way you phrase it, like to ask them about their longing, I would love to go into fundraising conversations, knowing that I'll be talking about this. It would be so much easier. It would change everything. So
yeah, go right ahead. Please do.
I love that you name it like this. It's an invitation to realness, to speaking about our struggles, our vulnerabilities, and inviting the funder into that space, which, like you said, is not mainstream at all.
No.
And really edgy.
One of my personal principles is to lead with vulnerability, right? That's my leading edge, my way of showing up. It's the best of my capacity and my resource in that moment, is to come with vulnerability, a soft heart, and let myself be touched and affected by those who I'm with. Yeah. Including funders, including, whoever, all of them. At some point when I was in my 20s, I made a vow to love all beings. And it's very imperfect, I'm very imperfect at that, but that's one of the ways I know how to do that is to lead with vulnerability and not knowing, right? Curiosity.
Yeah. It takes tremendous courage to do that, to show up like that in relationship. It is truly world shattering, the way we live in this world right now.
When I can't, I just had an experience on Friday where I wasn't able to stay close to that place because I got scared, and I made a decision that I now regret so deeply, and even that vulnerability to be with the pain of that regret. Everything I'm saying to you is informed by it, right? Like I'm right at that edge of being cut open in that way, that shattering.
Yeah, I'm really touched by what you're sharing, and I just feel the need to take a moment to take it in, because it's extremely hard, I feel, from my experience, to model that, what you just said, to bring this kind of a vulnerability in relationship. I wish I could do that more often. So hearing you speak about your experience with that is really touching. Oh, yeah. And it leads to my next question.
Right.
Because it is about courage. It is one thing that I read on your website, and it is related to what you shared earlier with this collective initiation. So in your latest blog post on this idea of the collective initiation, you asked this question, which I feel is the question. You said, do we have the courage to surrender our comfort and privilege that is destroying Earth, and actually let go into the Earth's dreaming? Naming this courage the surrendering. And I feel it boils down to being able to do this. And what I sense here, there are two things that I feel are crucial. One is that it is a collective effort. Like you said, it's a collective initiation. It's about us, not just me. So my question is how to say yes collectively to this initiation, because I feel a lot of the courage to show up, like you just shared, it is enabled by us collectively owning this, saying yes to this. I feel it really helps not to be alone.
Way. Yeah, well, that's exactly, starter culture is one answer to that question, right? Like, how can we do, because it is, in a way, doing our individual, our personal, I don't like that word individual. I'm kind of allergic to it. Doing our personal work.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Individuation is different. Individuation is really important. But doing our personal inner work is not separate from generational, intergenerational, ancestral, land, collective community work. If we're aware of it or not, but definitely when we're aware of it, the way that we can engage is has a much larger scope, and this kind of scaling, changing the order of magnitude from interpersonal to whatever, deep time
Yeah.
angle, perspective we're looking for through. So, and again, I think it's another tension point. It's we can't, I can't, you can't make something happen in a collective level, right?
Yeah.
By telling people to do something. It'd be so great if you all just would listen to me. We'd be fine.
Yes.
I know the answer. Just do what I say. Oh, okay. Shadow modernity much? Yeah. So each of us, to honor the unbrokenness and honor the wisdom and the path of each of us, that we all move at different rhythms and cycles and timing and tempo, and each one of us comes alive in different ways and through different portals, different openings, and we don't know when that's going to happen. And it has so much to do with healing, and it has so much to do with development, psycho-spiritual development, and that capacity to shift consciousness to earth consciousness, to have community shaped consciousness rather than defended separation based consciousness. So that tension between that we live in is when we feel that longing, when we feel the grief of what's happening on and with and as the earth in these times, and we feel the longing to save earth, which and then we want to get kind of busy doing things. I don't believe there's anything or anyone to save, actually. It's more about composting and letting die what needs to die. So I guess that would be the essence of the answer that I might name here is supporting the dying, like Vanessa Machado de Oliveira's book Hospicing Modernity. There's something here that part of the initiation, part of all initiations, and that's where this question came from, is dying to the old life, and that dying of attachment to the old way of being, the old way of being in a relationship, the old identity, the old way of belonging, is required to step through into the initiatory space, which is a liminal space after the dying and before the birthing, because we don't know who's going to be born. It might take 500 years before something, probably will, at least, right, before something is born that we will never see. We will never see. We don't know how long the initiation will take. It might take 500 years. We don't know. So what is my part to do right now? Our part is to tend the dying. The dying of the old way, and the composting of the beauty and the horror, so that there's a fertile ground for something to grow out of. And doing that with Earth together. Earth is a master of the cycle of life and death. Earth, that's how Earth functions. Death feeds life, life feeds death, right? Life has to eat. I mean, every time we eat, we're eating death. When we die and we give our bodies back to Earth, we're feeding life. Unless we're pumped full of formaldehyde and put into an iron box, which some terrified modern cultures like the United States do. So there's and then again, it's that question of, okay, well, what's my place to do, to be part of the system, the collective that's already a collective. Earth is already a community. So we don't have to do anything for the collective. It's more like, what am I, if I'm listening in, what's my particular way of being in relationship with the dying so that I can support it? Can I, is mine to, like I just said, is mine to go into the death practices and the funerary practices of humans, where the formaldehyde and the iron boxes are happening, and offer options? Or is mine to mine happens to be taking people out into wild places and offering vision quests and programs, working with shadow or online programs, or I'm a storyteller, earth-centric storyteller and singer, right? So ritualist. So each of us, listening in for what's the way for me of participating in the collective that's already happening, rather than I need to make the collective do something.
Yes.
Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to say here as a soul guide is 2 things are required at the threshold. One is at the threshold of surrendering to and having the courage to let the old life die. 2 things are required. One is crisis. Well, we got that.
Yes.
Crisis. And not protecting ourselves from feeling the crisis, but really feeling the crisis and understanding essentially nothing about the old way of life can be continued. There is no way of going. There's no way of continuing to participate, right? Feeling that, understanding that for ourselves and in our families and communities and groups and organizations, whatever our level of, influence is. So crisis, okay, and letting it cut and feeling the pain. But the second thing that's necessary is the call. We have to hear the call from soul, from earth, from the future ones. We need to hear who and why we're doing what we're doing. Who are we moving? For whom are we moving forward? For whom are we letting go of, surrendering to, and dying to the, right? That's what gives the courage. What am I doing this for?
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So crisis and call are the 2 essential ingredients of the threshold times. And part of what I'm trying to do, like in my blog post, is reframing this crisis that we're in as a crisis of initiation. And an invitation into the dreaming with earth is the call. Right? So that's what's guiding my work. Crisis and call. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really powerful what you're sharing. I'm saying it because I feel it in my body, listening to what you share about the not protecting ourselves from feeling the crisis. And I recognize how I do that, how I'm afraid to feel as vulnerable and fragile, and to say that I struggle financially, or that in my relationship, and that it hurts. Yeah. And yeah. But like you said, to do that while being aware of the call and why you're doing it is so beautifully put together. It's encouraging. Yeah. And I this was my last question on my list, but it really speaks to what you just shared. You said that you spoke about the power of stories and the big stories, which carry the original instructions for being human. So here I'm curious, what is one story that we need to come back to help us in these times of transition? Or maybe there's a new story that's being written. I don't know, whatever you feel like sharing in this about this with coming from a story with
way. Yeah. I love that you have the courage to ask big questions.
Thank you.
Reveals a lot about the way you're in relationship with the world. It's delicious. Yeah. I'm offering a webinar for practicing transition on the 5th of August. I was just writing about this yesterday, in a way. And I was really with the way that imagination has been so colonized or suppressed in modernity, and the necessity of that by consumer capitalist culture. And so that's one way, one word for the co-dreaming with Earth is imagination, right? And when I say imagination, I mean the deep capacity to be visionary and generative, and not the sort of escapist fantasy.
Yes, yes.
Right. But the imagination that comes from actually being fully, deeply present to, all into the depths. So that's one thing that story is medicine for, is that it opens that portal that, awakens our imaginal capacity again. Story, the big stories, the stories that are stories of initiation or stories of transformation, or I mean, especially those, really all stories arise from the earth through the people, right? The traditional stories, indigenous stories, fairy tales even arise from the lived experience of relationship with earth community. They've been Christianized or colonized, but you can still feel and hear the deeper echoes and the deeper threads, right? Like what's really happening in Red Riding Hood, right? A girl wearing red in relationship with a wolf going to her grandmother's house who's ill in the forest. What's really happening? Death, meeting death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What if it weren't about vanquishing the wolf? So we begin, when we start to tend story and we start to listen with earth-centric ears and imaginal ears from the heart, this way of remembering, we begin to remember kind of what's happening there. We start to listen and hear and track the more ancient, tracks through the stories. So that's one thing. That's one layer of story, is this remembering. Another layer of story is stories of our own ancestors, our own people, right?
Yeah.
Can be really healing and holding for deepening into relationship with our wise and well ancestors and the lands from which they were born, which are, by the way, in our DNA and in our bones and in our blood and in our muscles and in our bodies, where we are still that land, no matter where we live. That specific land where food was grown and eaten and animals were hunted, and where those stories were born. So that's another layer. And then there's a layer of the stories of peoples. This gorgeous film just came out from Sand, The Eternal Song. And I was talking with, have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh, I've watched it like 3 times in a row. It's so gorgeous. It was sobbing. That God talk about remembering, right? But the particular remembering that they show in that film, for me anyway, the reason it was so poignant and gorgeous is indigenous peoples, colonized peoples, know already what it is to live through annihilation and destruction and apocalypse. It was visited upon them by my ancestors and other people who look like me.
Yeah.
So their stories, both their ancient traditional stories, but also the stories of how they've survived and how they've remembered and how they are remembering and how their cultures are still alive and they are tending and remembering, are incredible gifts in medicine for us. And heartbreaking, right? For me anyway, like,
yes,
that healthy shame and regret and vulnerability required to say, are you really willing to be my teacher through these times when my ancestors and others like me have visited this already upon you? I mean, that's talk about decolonizing in depth. So that's another layer of story. It's like the place ancient and present and future meet through the bodies and experiences and ceremonies and cultures of Indigenous peoples. Also, so that I can remember my own indigeneity. I can remember my own Indigenous ancestors, not so that I can appropriate their culture, but so that I can reach back and remember mine. You're hearing the cycle and the circle here, right? Which brings me back to my own ancestral stories, which brings me back to my own ancestral lands, which brings me back to reciprocity with the place I'm living right now. Which are another layer of stories. That the place I'm living right now is constantly singing and telling their being, their story, right?
Yeah.
And that I'm participating in if I'm leaving the confines of my little box of forgetting, this apartment. It's a cage of forgetting. Every time I go out into the wild, I'm remembering something and I'm hearing something.
Yeah.
Part of why I'm an improvisational singer and storyteller. When I tell a story, I go out onto the land and I tell the story out there first. And I, as an offering to the place, but also as a listening, how do you story, how do you land, you earth, want this story to move through my mouth, right? So I'm not really telling the story. Earth is telling the story is telling the story through me. And my capacity to dream with earth, my imaginal capacity, my ritual consciousness shifting, ceremonial capacity of expanding to earth-centric consciousness, which, I'm not perfect, but that's a big practice for me, is listening to the voices of the wild others and listening to the story. Sometimes they tell me new stories of the place. Sometimes I'm telling stories of, Red Riding Hood or whatever. Right. And then we come to this idea of we need a new story. And so I heard something the other day, and I wish I could remember from whom, but it was something about, actually, we need to tell the truth about the story we are living in right now. And again, it's that thing of like tending the crisis. Like, look, can we tell the truth about the story we're actually living in?
Right. Wow.
Right. Before we try and change it, before we try and rescue or save or change or, jump to the future because it's more comfortable. Fantasy escape to the future because this sucks. Fucking hurts. What's happening, on all levels, right? So this kind of truth telling of the story of now, in service to, of course, in service to the human initiation, the collective initiation, in service to remembering ourselves as part of Earth community. Okay, and then we have the kind of liminal, magical, not knowing dream stories of a night world or of visions or of something we might catch as we practice more and more this earth-centric consciousness and stepping into the imaginal depths. We might catch, something. Every dark moon, I listen to the holy dark beloved. When I'm with mountains in a particular way, I listen to their messages. So there's a way of, there's prophetic dreams. Like there are ways of catching, something, seeds of the future. And then it's about not forgetting, which means telling the story, but also not concretizing it to think we know what it means. Can we hold it in the mystery and let it guide us like this? I'm coming back to my 9-year-old moment of stepping through that veil. It's like that, the magic of that moment of sunlight and wintergreen and birch tree and my utter belonging and being loved by the world and welcomed by the world, and that kind of beauty, can I let those seeds of the future guide me like that, in which it becomes like the compass? Like, does this thing I choose to do right now, this way of being in the world, of tending the dying, telling the stories, is this in service to those seeds? Am I watering those seeds? Am I offering those seeds compost of dying now? Am I making good soil for them to root in? Leaving the way they grow into what future sky, into what, being they grow into, to them, because I don't know what they will grow into.
Yeah. Wow. This is so powerful. Becoming compost for the new seed and allowing them to just have their own life, not trying to make something out of them. Yeah. Wow. I can feel the truth of it. Yeah.
Modernity wants to predict and control and figure out, what fruits we can sell from those future trees.
Yeah, exactly. How to extract the goodness out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and I love what you said with, we need to tell the truth of the story we're living in, because this is where it all begins. We cannot change, heal something that we're not accepting, that is there in front of our eyes, what's in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is,
which brings us back to the vulnerability, like to say, this is how it hurts. This is what I see. This is, and not in a like, and here's the scientific facts and rah, 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 but in a like, here's how I'm being killed with grief today, or killed with delight today, or cracked open. Here's the place of where modernity is dying in me. Here's the place where modernity is dying in the world around me, and naming it, having the courage to name it.
yes.
What would happen if you did that in the people around you, in the world around you, right? That's a truth telling, consciousness shifting spell.
Yeah, I can. It just speaks so much to what I just went through these days, and I feel this conversation with you, it's really reframing what was happening for me, and actually really giving me the courage, and actually enables me to trust my intuition, because I feel it the right way, but I'm too afraid to step on it, because I don't even know why it is so. There are so many things that need to die. My reputation, my sense of control, everything I invested in who I am, who I've been so far.
Yep. Yeah. So cultivating resources, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is maybe even a good place to, I see that we're at 10, but just to name here, like, cultivating true inner and outer resources, not extractive resources from earth, but cultivating inner and outer resources that are relational and allow us to be in relationship with earth and ourselves and our people in a particular way of groundedness and centeredness and power with, rather than power over, is essential. Like, we can't. Healing is essential, but it has to be healing for something. We can't. It's not like a lifelong project that we just get busy healing ourselves. It's like, it's a point, like, okay, actually, what is this in service to? And what it's in service to is having the resources to take that step, be courageous in that way, and not doing it too soon. Right? Not doing it too soon. Listening to the intuition, like, is it time? Who needs to be tended in me? What resources do I need? What healing do I need? What relationship do I need to strengthen, so that we're held through? We build collective through relationship, through the relational field. Then we can only go together. You can only initiate as far as your community can come with you, in a way. So, personally, so the kind of how do we tend those relationships? And that's why it started culture. The relational culture is our intention of what we're up to building, creating out of the compost. We don't know what that's going to look like, but we know it needs to be relational, right? Rather than, based on separation and forgetting and control. And so there's this kind of, just this beautiful dance between not getting lost in the victim and in the, the crisis, remembering the call, and also doing the work of healing and building resources so we have the capacity to be vulnerable and name what needs to be named.
Yeah. Wow. This is, I'm listening to you and I'm just like, wow, you mapped the inner terrain how it is connected to the outer terrain so beautifully. And, it's almost like a bullet point thing, not to just like transform it into something, but the clarity of it. I love the clarity of it because I feel we need it. We need it as well to be able to navigate this time. So thank you for sharing so with so much clarity and aliveness, something that I feel is true as well. Wow. Thank you so much again, Sara. It's been really, really rich and potent and also very helpful for me personally, I feel. So, thank you.
Yeah. Sending you a lot of blessings on your path personally and also in your work. Yeah. Don't hesitate to reach out again. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sara.
All right.
Have a beautiful day.
Yeah, you too. Go well.